Hello and welcome to Every Day is Cyber Day. My name is Claudiu Popa. I'll be your host for the next half hour approximately, and we'll talk about responsible internet citizenship. This is one of the most important aspects of cyber safety. It's fundamental to everything that we do at the KnowledgeFlow Foundation. It's essential for people to understand that their role as cyber safety champions includes the need for integrity, for professionalisms, for ethics, for everything that has to do with not sharing misinformation, with taking an active role in how we help others combat disinformation, and knowing what we can do about things, such as reporting privacy issues and incidents to the privacy commissioner, for example. So it's about thinking on your feet. It's about being a responsible internet user. And we'll talk about something that's near and dear to our hearts here at the Cyber Safety Foundation that we call the Cyber Safety by Design framework. And that Cyber Safety by Design framework is made up of 7 principles, 3 of which are going to be discussed in today's session. There's another session that goes far deeper into cyber safety by design. I'll leave that to you to discover for another day. But for now, what are those top 3 priorities that can turn passionate internet users into cyber safety champions? Let's explore. First of all, this is me. I'm a certified cybersecurity and also certified privacy professional. This level of legitimacy is the type of thing that you get after being in the business for many years, in my case, for decades. I've also written a number of books, and I'm a trusted resource. I'm a contributor to television and radio programs. Not that this is important, but it's critical for people to understand that if they're going to be taking advice from anybody on something as important, as essential as cyber safety, you need to ensure that they are professionals. Professionals who are certified have to comply with a code of ethics. And when you are lucky enough to have been certified by multiple organizations, you also have to comply with the code of ethics that belongs to each and every one of those organizations. So in my case, it's 4 or 5 of those organizations that impose those codes of conduct on me. Generally speaking, individuals who are not professionals, who are simply sharing information and not necessarily talking about the dynamics of cyber safety, the importance of your responsibilities towards yourself and others, those tend to be hit or miss. And quite frankly, the types of programs that you see on the web in many cases are simply clickbait. In fact, many malware programs, many fraudsters, and I'm sure you might have seen a few of those, will start with a pop-up, and it'll say your computer has been infected. Here are some tips for disinfecting your computer. And some of those tips are real, and others will lead to a deeper compromise of your system. All that to say that you really need to be able to trust the source of the information. So don't be afraid to roll up your sleeves and do the research and figure out who's talking to you, where you're getting your information from, and certainly teach your network to do the same thing before forwarding emails, before sending people to sketchy sites or providing them with links to social media contests and things of that nature. So the KnowledgeFlow Cybersafety Foundation is this amazing organization that is run by an incredible group of people. I was lucky enough to be one of the 2 founders almost a decade ago. But even before that, we went out to schools, we spoke with parents, we talked to principals and other educators. And the questions were very similar. Times are changing. What do we do about digital literacy? What do we do about acquiring and remaining in step with technological progress? And that's today's challenge, almost to the letter, except it's accelerating because there's so much more content on the internet. A disproportionate amount of it is patently false, and it takes a lot to stay on the right track. Essentially, the big currency of the internet today remains distraction. And so attention span is really where you and companies and also fraudsters get their value. So if you can maintain control over your attention span, you're in control over something that is a valuable commodity today. If businesses can use ads or clickbait to distract you, then they manage to profit from your redirecting your attention to them. If other parties can use fear, uncertainty, and doubt, like scammers, for example, can distract you and raise concerns and have you believe in nonsense to the point where you will surrender control over your computer or other devices, then they will be able to profit from your attention span. So try to manage this most valuable currency as best you can. So we have a ton of programs, and I invite you to check them all out at knowledgeflow.org. Most of them are completely free. All of them are free to the audiences. We partner with municipalities and law enforcement, educators, and groups, in particular, vulnerable sector groups and audiences, children, seniors, new Canadians, etc. And there's a ton of good work that gets done. You'll find a lot to download, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later on. But for now, we want to extol the virtues of taking standardized approaches and following that process and essentially bulletproofing ourselves against some of the misinformation that has infected the internet to a large extent. And we want to dig a little deeper into what we can do. That's our mission. It's to create unhackable cyber safety champions. And we want to do that right across Canada and beyond. So that internet experience is driven by what happens to your attention span, right? That's the valuable commodity. That's the raw material that both companies and scammers will leverage for fun and profit. So it varies. As far as your internet experience is concerned, it's shaped as much by your preparedness for what it is that you're about to see online, as much as by the control that you are given by schools and the courts, law enforcement and companies, and certainly social media, because it has a tendency to follow you around and it's inside the apps on your phone as well. But that internet experience is also driven by those who watch you, and that could be your internet service provider. It can be the antivirus tools that you've downloaded. It can be any apps today. All of that is contributing to a certain level of influence that other parties have over us as we're using this medium of information exchange that is the internet, right? So if you think about it that way, you understand that, well, let's say you sit down to do something at the computer, or perhaps you wanted to say, you know what, why should I pick up a reference book or an encyclopedia from my bookshelf? And of course, those encyclopedia are long gone from the days 30 years ago when every household used to have these amazing leather-bound encyclopedias. Now people sit down on the computer and they Google. So what happens at that point, right? Because ostensibly you have so much more information at your disposal. Well, the first things that come up are ads, and the second things and the third things that come up are ads as well. And beyond that, you're going to have multiple options for the things that you are presented with. And so, well, you're going to want to average out your hits, right? You're going to want to perhaps visit some of the more trusted sources, some of the encyclopedia, some of the Wikipedia pages, perhaps some expert website, and you're going to want to get an idea of what it is you're looking for. And based on that, you're likely going to open more and more pages, each of which will present you with information in a certain style, in a certain type of wording, language, with certain ads that are inevitably embedded into the pages, and also the things that you don't see, which are the trackers and the cookies that behind the scenes try to understand what your preferences are, right? They don't necessarily have a harmful intent, but they can absolutely harm you if you think about the way that these types of little influences have an impact on the decisions that you make over time. And then you find out that you've been on a computer for a couple of hours before you know it, right? So instead of just getting an answer, you've suddenly opened up myriads of opportunities for being presented with data, right? Just sheer raw data. Some of it is information, other chunks of it might be misinformation, and it's really difficult to trust what it is you're presented with, right? So these are the types of skills that we foster and that we want to hone, and we want to, first of all, gain control over our own attention span. Once we gain control over that, we can acquire the skills to tell the difference between information and misinformation, essentially what is true and what is not, right? And at the beginning, it's fairly simple. You find some claims online and you type in fact check, and then you go to some of the more trustworthy fact checking websites, right? So things like Snopes, for example. But there are other fact checking websites that focus on politics or finance, etc. But the key thing is that there are certain audiences that are being targeted disproportionately, and those in particular are youth. They're of course seniors as well, because they're seen as having more disposable funds. But youth have power in the sense that they have the most attention span. They can stay on a computer or be reading information off of their device for many hours a day. And that's a lot of data. And as they read more, they're also surrendering more information about their own preferences, right? For example, Meta has a patent on where our eyeballs go when we visit a web page. That's important because they want to know how to lay out a page so that they can present ads in the most advantageous way that benefits their advertisers. And of course, they can get more money from their advertisers if they deliver more quality information about you and me. So the youth of today are more tech literate than ever before. And we're looking at companies that have realized that a lot of youth also have tech-related jobs, perhaps jobs that are enhanced by technology, perhaps jobs that create technology, etc. All in all, they have earning power, and they themselves are great targets for profit and revenue, etc. But one of the issues is that if you go too young, if you target people who are too young, one, they don't have earning power because they're minors. And two, it's actually illegal to target target kids under a certain age, and the laws will vary. So whether it's 13 or 14, if you're targeting people who are too young as an advertiser, well, you're breaking the law. So what do you target them with? You don't target them with interest rates from your bank. You don't target them with financial instruments and investment opportunities. You target them with games and in-game product placement, et cetera, et cetera. So this is why we're looking at an explosion in the number of daily hours that our children are spending looking at screens on a daily basis. And of course, that has a lot of healthcare folks fairly concerned. Half of teens use the internet almost constantly. Well, that's true, especially since it's also true that the internet is using them almost constantly. In effect, at least I use my phone in a way that prevents all of my apps from running all the time. They only run while I'm using them. But most people use their apps with the default settings. They use their phone without putting it on battery saving mode, right? And that allows these apps to communicate nonstop. They know exactly where you are. They have an idea of what speed you're moving at and what direction you're going. They know your preferences, obviously, from the apps that you've got installed and so on. And that's why we say that the internet is using us more than we're using it. Certainly, the information that they're getting from us is 100% accurate. What they're getting from our users and from our own usage is far higher in quality than what we're getting when we go online and we see ads, we see misinformation, we see a whole bunch of biased opinions, and it's very difficult to tell the truth. Not to mention that even when we do know the truth, it takes us a while to compare results and fact check and figure out who's speaking and whether they are legitimate speakers or not. So keep that in mind, because it's critical that we understand the fact that attention span is what drives everything. And we've seen social media platforms one-up each other right up to the point where we've seen some of the most addictive interfaces participate in the global economy. We've seen businesses be harmed because their social media site slowed down or went down, or they were no longer validated, or whatever it might be. They had an interruption in that almost constant connection with their audience. And that audience is you. It's made up of young people. They crave the eyeballs. In fact, we talk about how addicted young people are to the internet and to games and gamified experiences. Businesses are even more addicted to us. And that's where that power comes from, right? We wield the power because they are addicted to us. They want to constantly present us with ads. They want us to click on those ads. They want us to take action. And if we don't take action, they want us to just tell them verbally or tacitly what our preferences are. And so that's where we need to understand where our power lies. Our power is in controlling how much of that attention span we share, and even more importantly, in knowing how much data is being shared with those who watch us and those who want us to visit their sites and those who want us to buy from them. So withholding that attention and refraining from sharing information is where our power comes from. And we have a responsibility to do that. Part of the reason is that we really need to protect ourselves and our own personal time and attention. And it's exhausting on a daily basis to be looking at a screen and constantly be reacting to so many different conversations going on. That's a great departure from having one-on-one meetings, right? We're talking to sometimes dozens of people in one-on-one instant messaging conversations today on our device. So we need to protect ourselves. We need to protect our minds. We need to make sure that we can think clearly. And certainly we need to protect ourselves in the long run, right? Anything we do today can have repercussions in the future. We post pictures of ourselves online. We think they're ephemeral. We think they go away after a while, but they oftentimes don't. That's why you may hear that there are different laws being considered and implemented in various parts of the world. Laws like something called the right to be forgotten, the right to request from a search engine the ability to be deleted. But it goes beyond that, right? Like it goes right to how much information are we sharing? And if I'm sharing so much information that someone can steal my identity, well, then that it's not just my present identity that's compromised, it's my future identity, because it's so difficult to change our government documents. When someone steals our identity, defrauds us, goes to the bank, opens accounts, opens companies in our name, start driving around in expensive luxury cars, and we find out months or years later, after it has damaged our credit rating, after it has had an impact on our ability to pay our mortgage or our bills or get a loan, etc., right? That's a significant impact that identity theft can have. And it doesn't start with criminals stealing that identity information from us. It starts with us sharing it with what we think are perfectly legitimate businesses. Those businesses get hacked or they leak the information. It gets collected and aggregated by criminals, and they have a very detailed profile on us, right? So that's our future at stake, right? Beyond that, we know that through our devices, we are connected to others, we're connected to family and friends, and we're responsible for safeguarding their information, right? So anytime somebody hacks into our social media account and literally emails all of our friends and says, look, I'm stuck in a cave somewhere, or I'm being held hostage, please send money, etc., it's unfair of us to put them in a situation where they have to decide between leaving us in a potentially risky situation or taking their chances that this is a scam, simply because we weren't sharp enough to protect our account. We need to take control over that, and we need to deny those who have the temerity to shamelessly try to take control of any aspect of our online persona or our real life identity, right? So we don't want to put our family and friends in that situation, in particular because we have dependents. We have dependencies and we have dependents, right? Those who depend on us as well. So it's important for us to realize that just by us protecting our own accounts and our own identities is not enough. We also have to bulletproof others so that they may protect us, right? Because we live inside their address book. We are inside there's a one-to-one connectivity from a variety of people. We are 1 degree of separation from them. And so when their accounts get compromised, so do ours. Our identities are at risk. So it makes sense for us to accept the responsibility to help make them unhackable too, if that makes sense, right? So all of that amounts to a reputational impact. How? Well, if our privacy is compromised online, our information gets out. If our accounts get compromised, and people know that we have weak security and we can't protect our friends and family, if our private life gets advertised online, or people come to us and they say, you know what, I'm holding on to your personal information and you need to pay me if you don't want it shared publicly. Well, that's a big deal because it has a reputational impact, not just on us, but on our immediate network. And some of that victimization can be pretty rough. We've seen people harmed, not just emotionally, but physically as well. Right? There have been some tragic situations coming out of situations that involved extortion, ransomware, intimidation, right? Threats, right? We need to draw the line at that. We need to say, this is not going to happen on my internet. It's certainly not going to happen to me or my friends or my family, right? We need to take a stand on that. And it's unforgivable, right? There are certain things we do not tolerate. And we don't tolerate messing with our reputation and the privacy of our way of life. That is enshrined in a charter of human rights and has been since 1948. Privacy is a human right, and it's the same thing around the globe, right? So when we're denied these rights, we need to have the confidence to say, you know what, that's my fundamental human right, and I can defend it no matter what somebody may have fooled me into, what contract I've been forced to read or not read, right? So we need to think about that reputational impact. We need to think about the assets that this is going to impact, right? So these aspects of protection are our responsibility. There's no doubt that we are responsible for protecting our assets, right? The money in our bank accounts, the identity that we depend on, our unique government identifiers that allow us to open bank accounts or build a little bit of credit rating so that we can someday get a mortgage or a loan or start a company, etc. These are assets that not just we, but our families depend on, right? Our children, our wives, our spouses, brothers, sisters, etc. Our families depend on these assets. It's very important that we protect them, if not because we want to use them today, but because in the future we need to pass them on to future generations. So that's how great this responsibility is. And that's why we need to lead such a principled life when it comes to our digital existence. So I talk a lot about our digital persona, the fact that we need to go online and be really thrifty with our personal information, and how we need to, as much as possible, be pseudonymous. We'll talk about that some more, but wanted to put that out there because we need to be intolerant to threats on all aspects of our identity and those of the people around us. So we need to understand how to consume information on the internet, right? So the most important thing about being online is that it's all about information. It goes in through our eyeballs and straight to our brains, right? We need to understand that there's going to be all sorts of attacks on us right at the emotional level, where distractions will try to make as much of an impact, right? So there's that boom moment where they're going to try to interrupt us, take our attention away, and say, look here, let me present you with some information. Well, in all of those cases, they are exerting influence upon you, me, and everybody else, right? So our prime objective is to share as little information as possible, right? Be in control of what you're sharing, right? This video is being shared publicly because we are contributing this information to you and to the rest of the world. But we're not sharing personal information. You won't be sharing personal information. And if all goes well, after you watch this video, you'll be sharing less and less information about yourself in unwanted, undesirable ways. If you choose to set up an account on a social media platform that is designed for you to extol your virtues and to list your professional qualifications, fantastic. In fact, you should reserve your name on social media because you'll have it first, and that matters when somebody wants to register under your name on one of those social media platforms. It's good to have your own so that you can defend it. But you certainly don't want to unintentionally give out too much information. So number one, tighten all privacy and security settings. Anytime you use a new app or a new program, you start by sharing nothing. And if it can't run, then share a little bit more if you're okay with it. If I'm downloading any kind of random app and it says it wants access to my microphone or camera, I think twice or three times before giving it access, and I usually end up deleting it, right? That's simple enough, right? There's absolutely no need that I can see in an app that needs access to my microphone and camera unless it's a communications app, right? Simple as that. But be vigilant and show others what you know, right? Use a pseudonymous persona, use a nickname. When I talk to kids in any classrooms, grades 1 to 12, I actually don't care what their names are, right? Because I'm teaching them that that information is almost too much information. I want to know what their favorite or their chosen superhero might be, and I'll call them that for the rest of the session. Aside from the fact that they love it, it's also a great way to learn how to choose nicknames online. You don't want to choose email addresses that have your personal name and your year of birth, for example, which I see an awful lot of, right? That's already too much information, and it's right there in your email address. And you want to wield tools to control your data. I always tell people, and you follow me on Facebook, or if you follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and I'm easy enough to find, just put the name of the social media in front of the dot and then ClaudiuPopa.com. So if you go to Facebook.ClaudiuPopa.com, you will see that I recommend that people use ad blockers as often as they can. Make sure you choose a popular ad blocker that has been tested and thoroughly reviewed, but you want to see as few ads as possible, and you want to make sure that your cookies are blocked as well. So those are external tools. In number one, we also said tighten all privacy and security settings. If you have a web browser, go into your settings right now. Pause this video, go through the security and privacy settings, and I bet you'll find things that you can tighten and change in there. The next thing to do is you go into your social media settings and you turn off a lot of that stuff. It's important that you do that because, one, you learn so much by doing it. Two, it gives you a sense of control, which will be very real. And three, it gives you peace of mind. So in being a responsible internet citizen is more about what you do externally than what you do internally, right? You obviously need to protect yourself, and you do need to protect yourself first, but you need to acquire this power to be able to empower others. And as you do that, you'll also find that you'll need to acquire the communication skills to explain things simply to others, right? So you don't need to necessarily go into storytelling mode and come up with fantasy stories. You need to be succinct, you need to be informative, and you need to be trustworthy. Why? Because these are the kinds of things that resonate with people, but also stay with them. Right? So you don't want people to walk away and say, wow, that guy was so entertaining. I came out of his seminar and I was scared or terrified and I can't recall what he was talking about, so I just shut down my internet. That's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to understand what we need to do to protect ourselves and others, right? So we want to embrace the risk and control the fact that the internet has this power imbalance between us and those who watch us, and between us and those who try to influence us. And we need to have a certain level of intolerance to maintain that power balance in our favor. Okay, so integrity is about knowing right from wrong. Not that there's an absolute right from wrong, but there's a moral imperative for us to, yes, take care of ourselves, but even more importantly, take care of others, because our own cyber safety depends on them as well. So it makes sense for us all to be an agent of change and to create this web of trust of people who will put their foot down and say, you know what, I put a stop to that, or I had no tolerance for that, and I reported it, right? It's very interesting that we can ignore certain things, but it's even more interesting if we can retaliate or report or insist that those who are there to protect us do their jobs by receiving those reports and acknowledging that they got them. So this gets me back to that code of ethics that we were talking about early on. When you're a true professional, you will have a code of ethics to stick to. And for us in the security and privacy space, where we need to be professionals day in, day out, and not just during the day, but at night as well, we have a responsibility to not teach through fear, right? So I didn't come here to say everything is a threat and everyone's out to get you. That's not the case, right? There's never been so much valuable information available to you as there is today. But at the same time, we can't teach through fear. We don't like to use the word FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, especially when we see so much of it out there. But this is how people sell. This is how people sell you on fraudulent opportunities. This is how people sell you on products and services that you don't need. This is how people separate you from your money and your attention span. And it's sad when you hear, and I'm sure all of you can think right now about one of your loved ones or friends who have said, you know what, I was so scared that I picked up the phone and I clicked, or I did something as a result of an emotional decision, right? So we need to build in that personal resilience. We need to build in that personal resistance to influence. We need to recognize influence, and we need to quite simply take a step back and say, if we see urgency, we introduce an artificial pause. We take a break. We say, you know what, if you want me to do something right now, I'm going to have to call you back. If you want me to click on something, I'm going to have to decline. If you think that there's urgency to this, or I'm going to miss an opportunity, then so be it. I need to think about it. And I also have a process. So one of the things that helped me in building in this unhackable persona, aside from the nicknames and all that, is the fact that I have a process. So in other words, I can't just click on a link and log myself into things. I have a process that says I need to create an account in my password database. I need to put in a title. I need to select a username. I need to come up with a secure password. And I need to keep track of all of these things. So that forces me to do things in a very calculated manner, as opposed to what an urgent phishing email might want you to do, right? Which is to say, react right away because it's urgent. So if you think about it, if you could acquire this level of presence and this level of resistance and resilience to not just scams, but general misinformation, right? You want to feel that it just washes over you, and then you want to figure out whether you've got some options, whether you want to share it with others or take another moment to fact check it. The fact is, the more people you help, the more this rising tide will lift all of them, and you all benefit, and you'll have a network that is as vigilant as you are. And it'll be so much more fun to have these kinds of discussions and say, look at this ridiculous thing that I saw today. Who do they think they are? Boy, did they ever bark up the wrong tree, right? And I reported them right away. I blocked them, or I investigated them, or whatnot. I took screenshots, I reported them. Think about the kinds of things that you can use to empower yourself and others, because there's no shortage of things. And so we created at the Cybersafety Foundation, we created a learning management platform, which we call the Cybersafety Academy, and you can go on there and take courses for free. Go and have a look. I bet you'll find something interesting. We have tons of downloadable resources. We go into municipalities and various seniors groups, and no one has to call us necessarily. We always welcome it, but no one has to call us. They can just go in and download what they want. It's a great way to share information. It's a great way to empower others without them feeling that, you know, you want to get on the phone and you want to have a chat with everybody right this moment, right? There's no need for that. So go on there, check out the resources for seniors or any other vulnerable audience, and make sure that you download the right things and share them. We even have multi-language resources. In particular, we have resources for youth. The KnowledgeFlow Foundation cares a lot about younger generations because they're the future. And this is who we're trying to render unhackable. These are the audiences that have the biggest opportunities. And if you're in the audience today, you've got this opportunity to be unhackable for others. And of course, all those around you can feed on that energy, and they themselves can be resilient. So all of that to say, you have tons of opportunities to get involved. It's a fantastic learning opportunity to just follow some of our social posts. All that information is free. You can be a cyber crime fighter. What we do with that program, by the way, is we nominate people, right? So your friends might nominate you or vice versa. And it's a fantastic opportunity to build some storytelling. We have the Unhackathon, where we, you know, if you can hack your way out of a paper bag, well, those are the skills that we're fostering here. Anything can constitute someone being an unhackable cyber safety champion. You could be an instructor, you could be a learner, and you could be a volunteer. So it's a fantastic opportunity. And when it comes to those who wish to do harm or to deprive us of our assets or reputation or friends, families, etc., we use the hashtag #NotOnMyInternet, and we encourage it for all of you. Whenever you see a scam, why not repost it and say, you know what, I put a stop to this, not on my internet. And if you need to report it, you can report your own post. You can place a link to your own alert, right? You don't need to be a cyber safety or cybersecurity expert to be a champion. You just need to be responsible. And that's what this is all about when it comes to when it comes to being a responsible internet citizen. So I'm glad you enjoyed this. I'm glad you stayed with me this far. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll be able to share this with others. And by all means, drop us a line. Let us know how we can improve this program, how we can share it with others, and how you can make a difference in the lives of others by taking any of the steps that we talked about today. So thanks very much. It was fun for me to present, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.